Hello all, welcome back to the weekly portion review. This week we actually have a double portion, which is Tazria-Metzora. Tazria from a seed means when she conceived, and like a zera is a seed. And Metzora is someone who has leprosy. He has tsarat. And the focus of these two portions are really about ritual impurity and the purification process as well. Now, if we note the purification ritual of the leper, it really appears for anyone looking from the outside almost like this form of this magical ceremony. And it would behoove us to ask that what's the meaning of this unusual and symbolic ceremony. Now, our sages really identify two other commandments which we've spoken about in the past that also pose a very deep intellectual challenge. There is the scapegoat on Yom Kippur, and there is the red heifer. Now, interestingly, the purification of the leper shares elements with both of these. Like with the red heifer, the leper really, his ritual includes cedar wood and the crimson thread. And like the scapegoat, it involves sending away a living creature. In this case, it's not a goat. We're talking about a bird. Now, one could suggest that the Metzora undergoes in a more personal and symbolic form within his own domain, a kind of private Day of Atonement, a private Yom Kippur. And the sending away of the bird really would parallel the scapegoat and representing really the atonement for the sin itself, while the elements shared with the red heifer reflect more of the purification form of impurity. Now, a possible rational explanation for the ritual is that it creates this really powerful and emotional shock to the individual watching this. Is almost like a catharsis when him seeing all this happening around him. And you would hope that witnessing such a strange and vivid ceremony forces a person to confront himself, right? I have to search within my own actions and ideally awaken up to repentance. And, he would come to then realize that, although he seems outwardly like a tall and mighty cedar tree, inwardly there's nothing. He's like a hyssop. He's the crimson thread. He's fragile. He's small, and he's humble. However, there is an explanation of the Kabbalists who emphasize the profound interconnectedness between the human being, the Adam, and the natural world. And according to this view, when there's a flaw within the person himself, the flaw is not isolated. It actually reverberates. It ripples through creation itself. And a spiritual blemish in the human really manifests as more of a disturbance in the harmony of the whole natural world, right? We're no longer in balance, so to speak. And therefore, the leper is really required not only to correct himself, but also to repair the damage that he caused to the broader cosmos. This is really the deeper dimension of kapara, or in Hebrew, atonement. Beyond the internal process of repentance, there is also a responsibility to restore balance to the world that was affected as well. And it's important to really distinguish between two processes that the leper goes through. First, he has to engage in tshuva, in actual true repentance. And the Torah doesn't explicitly mention repentance here because it already mentioned it earlier on in earlier on the portions we read, where it talks about how he's going to confess what he has said, right? So this confession is not merely verbal; it actually is reflecting an inner transformation towards his soul. Now, secondly, he has to bring the actual kapara, he has to repair the damage he caused to the natural and spiritual order. And this repair is really enacted through a very unique ritual that's prescribed by the Torah. It's not only about cleansing the individual, but it's about restoring harmony between the human and its surroundings and the entire creation ultimately. And the idea carries I think, a profound relevance for us today, especially in the context of our life in Israel, right? When we're living in a time when a connection between man and his environment, between the spiritual and the physical, is no longer theoretical. And in Israel, we see how deeply intertwined our moral and our spiritual and our national condition is with the land itself. When there's fragmentation amongst us, then when there's division, of course, negativity or misuse of our speech, it's not confined to the individuals themselves. It actually echoes throughout the whole nation and even affects the reality that we live in, right? The Torah is teaching us that responsibility is never ultimately private. Just as the leper must repair not only himself, but also the world around him, so we too have to call call upon ourselves to recognize that our actions, our words, and our inner lives really shape the destiny of Israel, the people of Israel. And in the time when Israel faces both external challenges and internal tensions, this message obviously becomes much more urgent, right? The path forward is not only through strategy and strength, but through repentance, through rectification, through refining ourselves and healing the fabric of our own society. And each act of growth, ultimately, each effort towards unity, each moment that we are resisting improper speech, it ultimately increases kindness. And that's not small. It is really the restoration of harmony in the greater whole. And just like the leper's ritual restored balance to the cosmos, so too our actions have the power to restore balance to the nation and to the land. And perhaps, maybe in one more deeper message, that the redemption of Israel doesn't only begin on the battlefield or the political arenas. It begins within the Adam, within the human himself. And from there, it ultimately radiates out towards the entire world. I'm wishing us all Shabbat Shalom, when we are careful with the words we use, our speech, our intentions, and make sure we're orienting them towards unity and towards God. Shabbat Shalom.